So let's give a quick overview of what the Middle Income Workforce Housing Initiative is all about. And then we'll talk about what our Spark Capital fund is coming to look like. And then if Jerry with Omaha 100 wants to share a little bit about how theirs is coming together. We're really still in the really early formative stages of all of this. And so that is why we wanted to use this time to get your input, get your ideas, really get a sense of what's going to be helpful and useful to you. Not just from our Spark Capital Loan Fund, but information that we could also pass on to other partners who may be trying to think about ways to work with emerging developers. As you see, some of those recipients are on this call, and I think they're here to listen and see if there's ways to connect in. But also, we're all in this kind of community of practice of trying to learn and share together. So it's been a great partnership across the board. So the initiative was created by legislation that was passed in 2020. LB 866 was the legislative bill that created the Middle Income Workforce Housing Fund. It's a $10 million fund that is available for nonprofits to apply for up to $1 million grants that have to be matched with $1 million in grant funds so that you would get up to $2 million per fund. It was a competitive process. It occurred in the funds were let out the application was let out in the spring. We were notified in early summer, and now we're working to get all of our matching funds into our accounts and then get those state funds into our accounts and get these early days of the fund going, moving forward. It is a fund that supports more of the urban communities in Nebraska. So it's targeted towards Douglas, Lancaster, and Sarpy counties. And it's for qualified census tracts, so QCTs, and you should all maybe remember that from your Developer Academy or other sessions that you've participated in. It's communities or census tracts that have higher levels of poverty, is kind of a simplified way to describe that. And I'm actually going to share my screen to show a visual of what a QCT is, so that you can get a sense of where those QCTs are here in the Omaha area. So give me just a second. Okay, so this map here, if you can see that, okay, shows where our qualified census tracts are in Omaha. So as you can see, they're largely, east of 42nd Street. However, with this being 42nd Street, sorry. There are several that are west too, and there's more and more that are showing up west because poverty is not just isolated in one geography of our city, as we know. And also, just to show, there is a qualified census tract in, actually it's not populating here. I don't know why. Okay. There's a qualified census tract in Sarpy County that could have potentially been considered for this had there been an organization maybe applying to focus on that area, but there wasn't any. So it's really the funds that came together in the Omaha area are to support largely the work of our organizations in the east end of town. There were 3 organizations in the Lincoln area and Lancaster County that also received grants. There were 7 organizations in Omaha that received grants. The fund is to support the development of owner-occupied housing. So that's either new construction or it's the rehab of existing units. So the new construction units have to appraise once they're done being constructed between $125,000 and $275,000. On the rehab side, the rehab has to exceed 50% of a unit's before construction assessed value, and then assesses as above. So between this 125 to 275,000. So there's a couple of different things going on. There's assessments and appraisals. The appraisal piece, again, that's for the new construction. It has to appraise between that 125 and 275 once it's constructed. But to determine the rehab value, you will have to look at the assessed value and then the appraisal piece above. This can include, it's owner-occupied housing, so it can include attached or detached. It can be upper story housing as long as it's occupied by a homeowner, not rental. And the other piece of this is it can't have any other government subsidies. So it can't be paired with home dollars, CDBG dollars, any other city funds. I think our understanding is that likely also wouldn't be able to be eligible for ARPA dollars, but I don't know about the answer to that. And I welcome some of my colleagues to share any feedback on that, or things like LIHTC. So again, the organizations, some of them are on the call today: Omaha 100, Omaha Economic Development Corporation with Annette and Mike, Canopy South, their director over there is Cesar Garcia, 75 North, a key leader over there is Sydney Franklin, and another staff member on her team that is working closely on this is Sean Elahi. Habitat for Humanity, so that's Amanda Brewer, and then they have a team of folks that will also be working on execution, and then Holy Name Housing, as you see Matt Kavanaugh on this call, and I'm sure he can share who else maybe on his team will be participating. From the Spark Capital side, Lee Alexander is our leader of our loan fund on the deployment piece, and I participate in helping get it capitalized. So that's kind of an overview. I want to pause for a second to make sure I'm not missing anything. If Annette or Mike or Jerry or Matt, Lara, who helped us so excellently with putting our applications together, did I miss anything? Lee, did I miss anything? Angela, that you think is worthy of sharing?
No, I think you covered good.
Okay. So a criteria of this program was that, we got these funds in as grants, but we have to lend the funds out. And so the lending piece, we're trying to maximize the lending of it, I guess I should say, because some of this will likely stay in properties as subsidy. Some of our organizations are doing lending. So at Spark Capital, we are lending funds to emerging developers and really, constituents and collaborators that will help us accomplish our goal of building housing or rehabbing housing. Some organizations, like a Habitat for Humanity, for example, will use these funds to finance the housing that they develop on a regular basis anyway. Matt, I don't know if you'd want to share. I mean, I think it's a similar strategy for you over at Holy Name. You'll be using these funds to finance housing that you would likely already be developing.
Yeah, that's right. We're basically going to use it. First off, for just construction financing, so that lowers the cost moderately instead of borrowing from the bank, lending to ourselves, and then secondarily making basically second mortgages available to the home buyer to help bridge the appraisal gap. So building high quality new construction homes for sale in these neighborhoods, and whatever the bank won't cover in the first mortgage and the buyer can't bring in their own financing, that we'll make available in the second mortgage to help facilitate that sale. So that's the really general concept.
Annette and Mike, I don't know if you want to chime in about maybe how you're envisioning, just at a high level, of using your funds. I don't want to put you on the spot. It's okay. Part of it is we're also still like building this plane while it's in flight. And so that's again why we're having this conversation today, to get some feedback from all of you.
It looks like Michael is still muted.
Yeah.
Can you undo that?
I can ask him to unmute.
Okay. I'll just kind of give you some general overview. Our funds will be used as construction loans for each of the houses that we are going to build. We're also offering a portion of it as gap financing for buyers at that range who would be able to get a first mortgage, but there is a gap between the mortgage and the appraisal value of post-construction. So it'll be in the form of a subsidy, forgivable over time, as long as the homeowner stays in the home. It'll also be offered as closing costs and down payment assistance.
Thank you, Annette. I think what, so you kind of talk about a couple of things that are important for these emerging developers to understand, is that this financing can be used both to develop the homes themselves,
Mhm.
so either do the development with new construction or rehab, or to also provide financing for those home buyers, or both. And so I want to kind of parlay that into, if Jerry is interested in sharing a bit of how Omaha 100 is going to potentially use these funds, and then I can talk a bit more specifically about how Spark Capital will make these funds available to you as emerging developers. Jerry,
Okay.
would you like to go?
Yeah. Yes. Omaha 100 will be using its capital to provide construction financing for we're right now, goal is approximately maybe 7 new construction homes. We're trying to finance, and then what we will be doing, we'll be involved with the actual design of the home with our architect and our development team with that. And with that, we'll be looking for contractors, general contractors that will be actually building the homes with that. So then with that, then also our funds will also be available as others have said for gap financing with that, as far as down payment assistance to assist with the also flipping it over into our other loan pool as far as our permanent financing for the home buyers.
Thank you, Jerry. And I just saw that Melinda Williams from your team joined. Melinda's with Omaha 100 also, and then also Ricardo Castro, who is a participant in our second Developer Academy, joined. Thanks both of you for being here. So our Spark Capital Loan Fund is some of the same policies and procedures that we have in place for our existing fund, which is available to also support commercial development, are going to continue on with this program. So it's a resource for providing pre-development financing, acquisition financing, construction financing. We are not a source though for probably longer permanent financing. What we would then look to you is to come to us to seek that pre-development, acquisition, or construction financing, and then work with an entity if your home buyer needs this support, to work with an entity like Omaha 100, then to be able to get their mortgage to then purchase the property from you, which would then take out our construction loan from you. Or go through a traditional bank, a traditional lending institution. So we're working to try to lower our interest rate. So we have set our current interest rate at 7%, which we know is high, but our financing is to be filling that gap. And typically that is more costly than what you would find from a conventional institution. However, because this financing that we're providing comes with no interest expenses on our end, we're trying to find how we can maybe lower that down to be closer to a competitive market rate. We would provide, again, all the different types of financing. Another type of financing we could provide is potentially a bridge loan that would support that. Thank you, Sonia. Yay, lower interest rates. Yeah. Right now, what we're seeing, like I guess what I'm seeing, and Lee, I'd love for you to chime in if you're able to, on a current, the prime rate is currently 3.25%. And I'm seeing that bridge loans are ranging between 4.1 all the way up to 13.1%. And construction loans are anywhere from 4.75 to 9.75. So, we're going to try to be on the lower end of that. 7% does kind of fit in the middle of those spaces, but we know, again, with this financing being lower cost to us, we want to make it a lower cost to you. So I think where I'd like to move on to now is, and we can definitely answer more questions about the mechanics of the fund itself, but we'd like to turn it over to you. And I want to maybe just start with an open question around what would make this program interesting and useful for you as an emerging developer, not just coming from Spark Capital, but from any of the partners that you see on this call or the other ones that we saw on that list?
Here's the main one I have is thinking about this process, do you have kind of a time frame in mind of when, I guess, from start of application to funds dispersed? Or
Yes.
even the criteria you're looking for to get to that point? I think I kind of know general aspects, but yeah, I guess I don't know if you have a formal written plan like that.
Yes, so I'll talk about ours and then I'd welcome anyone from the collaborative to chime in if they're going to be seeking to partner with any of you. It's the same application process as our existing loan application. We would welcome you to start reaching out to us immediately. We can work with you to put your concept together, put your development budget together, your pro forma. We are obligated to get the first units ready for occupancy as all of our organizations within 2 years. So 2 years from now, that first unit that we provided financing for needs to be occupied. So we are excited to get that going because we'd love to see shovels in the ground in the spring or a rehab started in the spring. So the sooner you could engage with us about your idea, the sooner we would be able to it's just, start that application process and look to get that financing in place.
Just
Jamie,
a point of clarification on that. That's when the first unit needs to be built. These are going to be funds that hopefully revolve. And so if that time frame doesn't fit for you, don't worry. That's just our obligation to get the first unit done. So we anticipate this fund to grow, and we anticipate this fund to be something that is here years from now.
Also with that, the whole first 2 million that we have has to be expended within 4 years from now. So basically by the end of 2024. So, but because we'll be revolving those dollars, as Angela shared, it will live beyond 2024. Another component that I neglected to mention, so one of the matching sources for the funds that we match from the state is the Nebraska Investment Finance Authority. And the NIFA requirements have a limit on income of the household. So that's another kind of layer to consider with this. So the DED funds say that house needs to appraise between the 125 and 275, irrespective of who lives in the home and what their income level is. The NIFA funds, though, say the max income level that household can have is at 150% of the area median income. And our area median income for the city of Omaha is what, about $65,000? So 150% of that would put us at about $100,000 household income. Is that pretty close? Or $90,000? I just should have figured my math out before I threw that number out.
Yeah, I think it's, if you use the 2021 numbers from HUD, it's actually higher than that. But
it is, okay.
Yeah,
but a little bit higher. Okay.
Yeah, that's on us to figure out, as we are allocating out these loan funds, which projects are going to meet that NIFA recommendation or requirement, not recommendation.
Yeah.
Wish it was a recommendation.
Yeah. Yeah, so not all of the housing that gets built has to go to those households that make 150% or less of the area median income, just the portion of funds that would use the NIFA dollars. So yeah, don't mean to complicate things, but I did want you to be aware that that is a little bit of a caveat within the framework that we're working in. So timeframes, Donnell, you asked like when people can start applying, and then when the funds, I guess, need to be expended, or when we need to get moving on it. What other kinds of questions do you have about helping us understand what would make this most useful for you? Where are you at with like pre-development? What kinds of resources or support does everyone need on pre-development? Clearly, housing plans and design have been talked about. Where are people's thoughts on that and needs?
Well, I had a thought. This is Tyrone. It's about the actual acquiring of the land, because there's plenty of land, but you have to have a plan. That's where I'm stuck at. It's like, because I do want to participate in this, but it's like I would already have to have a clear plan to, especially working with like the land bank and things of that nature, to be able to acquire the land, to be able to start the project. So that's where my question is.
Anybody else have a question along those lines? Kind of just the getting started?
Yeah, I mean, I've spent the last kind of 2 months really fighting down house plans, trying to get that nailed down to where I've actually, I was hoping originally to work with Scott and Omaha by Design project and use their Affordable by Design playbook, but it's just not, he thought he was going to have it done at end of July, and they just did like the early template last week. So it's probably nowhere near ready even, to get it tried out. So I've actually been talking with a private architect, which has been a challenge in and of its own. I've gone through about 3 or 4 because either they don't want to work on a house that size or don't have time free. And so that's been a pretty big challenge, just getting that initial plan. And then similar a little bit to what I think it was Tyrone that had said, there was trying to get, then get approval with the land bank. And even right now, there's been some issues with the land bank's property, trying to get information from them. I'm having to email on individual lots to figure out who owns what. So it's been a lot longer process than I'm a little used to construction, where like we make the decision and we're building next week. So it's sort of it's been 2 months of kind of slow slogging, trying to get just some movement on that initial front end, which for me, it's like, if I want to get plans submitted and permitted to build next spring, which is my goal, I really need that in the next month or so in order for me to get stuff into the city and get some movement by spring. So I'm really trying to wrestle that down. That's been a little tougher than I thought.
That's good feedback. I know the affordability by design concept is really intended to support this work. And I think it still can be a resource in somewhere in this time frame of needing to expend these funds, but needing to have something sooner to get things in, shovel in the ground in the spring. We understand that. We've had the ability or the opportunity to connect with at least one entity that has done some affordable housing designs in another community in Nebraska, and is maybe interested in providing that same resource here locally. And that may be a next step for us to consider, is engaging that entity with all of you to look through timeline and process to get that on board. Is Zach, your experience with those architects that you're trying to nail down a concept and a design from, what's been some of the roadblocks in particular with that?
The first 2 just didn't have the capacity. They didn't have space to get to it because they're so busy. The other one doesn't touch houses under it was anything under $1 million. So it was just, even though that was recommended, and then one of the other challenges is a handful of architects, kind of, especially in the like new home, semi-custom kind of world, they work on percentages too of like build costs. And so that gets a lot messier. You can't really just come up with a kind of rough framework for what you'd like to develop. So I've got one that's really been interested, but he's, it's 2 weeks kind of just back and forth to get him kind of started of getting estimates together on what it would even cost. So it's just that's been a big challenge there.
Okay.
Yeah, we're running into the same problem as Zach, trying to find somebody to help us with this the design of the home, because everybody seems like they're a little too busy right now, I feel like, or the project's too small.
Got it.
Yeah, on the project size, Jamie, I don't know if you guys what's the max that you guys are looking to loan to one entity?
That's a great question.
Because I'm not really interested in one house. I mean, it's a 3 or 4 house, 5 house project. I would, trying to do, and to get the interest and the benefit of getting everything done together. So I think we're willing to, Lee's been taking a hard look at our existing policies and procedures and seeing how we can make this just fit fully with the policies and procedures that we have as flexibly as possible. But we, I think, are also open to changing them to make it fit the needs of this program. Right now, we have a rule that no more than 15% of our fund can go to any one entity or project, so that we make sure that we're diversified. That changes as we grow our fund. And so right now, I guess the max loan that we would be able to provide is, I should know this number right off the top of my head, but because our number keeps changing, I don't know it. Would probably be about a $700,000 loan, roughly.
That paired potentially with some conventional financing, and then we would also look to see how much equity an owner would be able to bring into a deal, could get us maybe in the place of financing what, well, I guess if you were able to get maybe 50% from a traditional source or a conventional source, then we could come in maybe with 45%, and then you would have maybe 5% of your own equity, or 2 or 3% of your own equity, some level of equity, which I'm going to put a little pin in that. That's another concept we've been thinking around, is building an actual equity fund to support you as partners and being an equity partner in a deal. Not sure that we'd be able to use these funds to support that, because we need to get the turnaround a lot quicker. So with that in mind, I think about 700 would be the top at this point, unless we're able to modify those policies and procedures. I know Lee's looking at how we could provide the full financing for an individual home, but how many of those homes we could do would be limited then based on that percentage. Sonia?
Okay, well, I'm going to be a little greedy and say, if Spark allows me to use 700, can I go to one of these other organizations and ask for more?
I don't think that's greedy at all. I think that's trying to maximize the resources. Where you may find that opportunity is like with potentially with an OEDC, and where OEDC would be looking to you, like, let's just use this hypothetically, and Annette, please jump in and help me kind of think out loud on this one. If OEDC has a concept, a lot, and a project that they want developed, maybe they partner with you, and you would be the developer, but you can't get the full level of financing needed to do the 5 houses that you want to do, you could come to our loan fund to backfill, or to not fill a gap, but to help augment that. But then potentially also needing to go to a conventional source and bring your own equity. Annette, does that sound plausible, or
I don't think at this time that's what we have in mind.
Okay.
And I still see Michael unmuted. I'm going to go knock on his door. He can better explain.
Okay.
No, you don't have to come knock on the door. I'm here now. I
I'm
stepped
like,
away. So what's the question?
so what they're trying to assess is, can they come to multiple organizations of ours to get loans? And the majority of the organizations that are getting the funds are actually using the funds themselves to develop their own housing that they are wanting to see in their communities. Whereas
Actually, that's what we're doing too.
Yes. Yeah. So, but I guess one of the things I was thinking was, if we had a situation where, like, Sonia was coming to us, or one of the emerging developers was coming to us to get financing, could they be the developer that you would work with on your project, where you would also provide them financing, and then we would bring in additional financing to do more units? But what I'm hearing more is that OEDC is likely going to be the developer themselves.
Yeah, we are. We'll be our own developers.
Okay. It may be something worth for us, like, to explore with maybe Canopy South. That may be a possibility, or potentially even 75 North, because I think they're also potentially looking for emerging developers. Habitat, Holy Name, OEDC, sounds like really driving the development themselves. Jerry, I don't want to speak for you. Where do you see that development being driven from within Omaha 100?
It would be, we would be the developer with that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So looking more for general contractors similar to OEDC.
Yeah.
And got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Clear as mud, right?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have a couple of thoughts, and, I will go back to, I know everybody's time sensitive, and being in construction and being in real estate, nothing ever goes on time, it seems like. But I honestly do believe that there are still architects and there are still people. I think my humble 2 cents opinion is that we need to reach out and sit in front of these people and tell them what we are looking to do. the doors are getting open. This is just my humble experience. And I've gotten a lot of good feedback, support. When you reach out to folks, you tell them you're part of the Spark Development Academy, and you sit in front of them and you tell them, I'm serious, I want to do something. I'm not saying that's going to get ahead of everybody else, but they will take you serious. And my experience has been that while there are some delays, and I'm not patient, by the way, things are getting done. And I will say that there are architects. I think, personally speaking, if people, you need to find the people that align with your vision and your goals. I've had no problem finding an architect because we aligned. I said to him, I want to make a difference in the community. Now, I myself, I grew up in South Omaha, so I have a soft spot for South Omaha, but I care about Omaha all, period. And when I met this architect, which I've known for a number of years, some other way, was, wow, if you're going to do that for the community, this is what he said to me. I am willing, and I won't repeat his name until he shares it with, he's okay with me sharing. I will not charge you my fees because I want to be able to align with what you're trying to do in the community. Now, I'm not saying everybody's going to give us freebies, but I do want to share that experience that I think when you sit in front of people and you truly have your vision, your mission, your goals, and they see that you're serious, you would be surprised. Not everybody's money hungry. There are people that want to make money, but they also want to make a difference. And I think with what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a difference, and that somehow needs to be communicated. I don't know it all. I'm learning. This is why I'm sitting here, but I'm just sharing my experience and hoping that some of you can benefit from it.
Sonia, I think what you're sharing is actually feels like a really good role for us at Spark to support you with, because I can imagine you as emerging developers and private developers who do seek to make a profit from this. When you do approach an architect, you may get some of that kind of warm support, but ultimately they want to make money, and as do you, and that should be your drive. Where we can come in is to support some of that mediation and negotiation and potentially work with Omaha by Design more aggressively and other entities to try to get those designs to you sooner, quicker, hopefully less expensively. And that can be one of the ways that we could maybe support this process. I wanted to ask a question around land assembly. That's been brought up by a couple of you. Talk to me about how you may see a need for help around land assembly, land acquisition. Is there any of that, Donnell? I see you getting ready to talk.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest problem right now. I mean, if you ever try to, well, I've done it. For instance, there's land owned by Omaha Land Bank.
Yep.
You go through the process, you can't get it. It's first right of refusal to buy Habitat. And so Habitat has to give it to you. And then Habitat doesn't really know their plans right now. So you're stuck in that loop. Or you go for, you talk to Alden about the city land. And I think they're trying to come up with a process. If you attended the meeting last week about the
North 24th corridor.
Yep. So again, all that land the city owns is in limbo because you can't acquire that land from the city right now because they're trying to design.
So they get their redevelopment plan finished. Yep.
Yep. So, and just happen to be the land I want is tied by both of those boundaries. So, I mean, it's you have to know who to talk to and people in high places to help you out, which fortunately this academy is giving an opportunity to have. So I mean, I'm very thankful for that. But it is. Without the land, you don't want to go too far into the design.
Sure.
Then you can't, that affects the cost of pro forma, and that affects the funding I'm asking for, which affects the plan. So, sometimes I get frustrated. I'm just like, I don't say frustrated, not I'm going to do it, but you say, okay, I'll start somewhere else. So now I've gotten out of that North Omaha development area now looked a little bit further north. And the Miami Heights, I think Matthew's in that area now doing some development, which looks great. And the Miami Heights area, and then there's some lots surrounding that area. That's a little bit outside of that area. There's, I think the city owns some lots there too. I don't know if they were going to make the same process that they're doing down on 24th area, the same as these lots, but I'll see and, let you guys know how that goes. But yeah, land acquisition is, if you're trying to do anything on 24th area, it's not going to happen. So, which is probably a good thing because, there's a lot of development going on, a lot of projects. So I'm sure they're just doing their due diligence to make sure the land goes to who it needs to go to. So, I'm a little frustrated by, it's me wanting it, but I get the bigger picture, and I'll wait it out, but, and I may have to start somewhere else first before those projects come online or become available, or that land becomes even available to buy. So yeah, that's my rant about land acquisition right now.
Thanks, Donnell. What other thoughts do folks have around land acquisition or challenges that you need support with overcoming?
Go ahead.
One of the things that kind of like what Sonia was saying is that I've been in meetings, and it's probably not uncommon, but it seems like a lot of people are running up to industry walls in the industry. And what feels like, I kind of feel like we're in a movement. This is kind of a thing. And I'm wondering, which is really cool to be a part of. And is it inappropriate to get lists of people that are willing to work with us, with people who are doing what we're doing, and somehow figure out how to make it more valued. There was another conversation in a different meeting about certain things that are really important, like environmental homes that are environmentally friendly, and that it's not as valued as a marble counter. And how is it that we can, this is lofty, have this movement that we're in, push towards a space in the industry that we're in? I mean, that's just my question. Is it possible to create a list of people that are willing to work with us?
Yeah, I see Angela nodding her head. I think that we've definitely got the beginnings of that list coming together. I think what we've tried to do thus far is be as inclusive and open as possible and try to engage as many partners as we can. And I think through that work, we've had many people come through the door with a lot of interest to want to support. I think there's probably another level or layer that we can synthesize that gets us to those who are ready to roll up their sleeves and execute in an ongoing and meaningful way beyond the academy. Annette, Mike, Matt, Jerry, anyone who, and Laura for that matter too, as you think about key partners, do you identify do you have a cohort of folks that you have in a circle that you refer to on a regular basis that will do this work and engage in this work?
I don't know that I have like a circle. I'm just, as you're talking, I'm thinking about the potential to connect. And these are, by the way, these are solutions I've seen them work on in rural areas, which is a similar, like smaller scale, maybe not get the attention of some of those professionals to step up and help you, is the potential to use, what do I want to call it, modular homes or manufactured homes that the plans are already in place. They're set plans, and then you can purchase. There are a lot of really good quality providers. There's one in York, Nebraska, which isn't too far to bring in, And I think there's one maybe in Iowa fairly close. So that's one thing, is to try to identify some of those building options for you so that you can get those plans in place. The other is to potentially connect with the folks that have worked with the Rural Workforce Housing Fund to see if they have any plans already that they've used that you could purchase and use again. So those are my two thoughts, because I don't see them being really different from what you're looking at. Obviously, you have to fit your site, but their, cost thresholds and where they're at is going to be really close to what you're doing too. So those are the two things I'm thinking, and it might even be something that DED and NIFA might help us with a solution, because I think that's a really critical piece that everybody's bringing up to be able to bring to the table. So as you're talking, I think there's a few places we can turn to maybe bring this back to the group and say, here's some resources for just getting those designs in place. And, maybe that's something Spark even as a longer term, and the others that have the fund, but I'm thinking specifically Spark as the CDFI potentially, hopefully, that will be working in the community and lending can have some plans as examples even. And we in the affordable housing industry have talked about this for a long time. I think it's even more critical probably in workforce housing to be able to have some basic plants that are available for folks to build from, rather than having to start each time. So I wouldn't want that to be a barrier. So assuming that we can get you those resources so that you're able to get your plans put together, then I think there's the next questions about how to get this built, land acquired, those kind of things.
Thanks, Laura. Annette or Matt or Mike, Jerry, Melinda, any?
Well, I
Feedback?
would say we're all treading new ground here. So this is a little different than what many of us are used to. The challenge, I think that, and it goes to what Laura was saying, even when you come up with a house plan, you almost got to price it out what post-construction is going to, appraisal is going to look like before you go into construction. So you'll know that you're within reason of what it's going to appraise for versus what it's going to cost you to build. And so each time you get a different house, you're going to get a different number. So that's a challenge that I think we're facing right now, is to come up with a design or two that we can make fit within the 275,000 maximum.
Mhm.
Yep, good feedback. I want to maybe just get either a thumbs up or thumbs down, or raise your hand. Who is interested in developing new construction?
Yeah, I don't know how to do the hand thing, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, wave or smile. Okay. Who is interested in rehab?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Both. I need both.
That's interesting. We've, I think, had a bit of an assumption that there's a bit more of the conversation focused on just that new construction, and maybe thinking that there would be less interest in that rehab. And so thinking about acquisition, definitely we need to be thinking about both vacant land and then property with existing structures. But we also know that the market right now is a really interesting place. And so to acquire something that fits into that, needing more than 50% of the assessed value to go into the property, you're going to be needing to walk in with cash on hand, right? To be able to buy that property and outbid the 10 other investors.
And if I can chime in there too.
Yeah,
I mean,
Zach.
I don't think right now, just from my experience, we kind of gave up early this year because we offered on several properties and realized a couple things. One, it wasn't feasible just because people that are buying or offering are investors that are fine making a much smaller margin, or it's, a homeowner that's also considering it, newer homeowners, that kind of thing, that are considering fixing the property themselves. So a lot of those properties that were available even last year, especially 2-3 years ago, they were everywhere. We got 3 or 4 houses for $30,000 or $40,000, and that's not a thing anymore. Those houses are now 70 or 80, so they're really hard to get, like you said, that back to that 50-50.
Yep, right on the head. It's not even, to find a house under market value to renovate is, it's not even possible right now, I would say. It's
In a scenario where that was found, what would be the best way to set up our fund to support you to be able to get that property and rehab it?
Well, I mean, there's probably 3 houses I own right now that have tenants in them. I don't know if they meet the criteria of the 50%. I guess I could see and look, but yeah, I think if that was the plan, if you're willing to support that, just kind of the same with the new construction, what information or criteria would you look for to develop a plan? And then obviously what wouldn't be needed in the timeline to start that construction or renovation of that project.
Donna, you bring up a good point around property that already has an existing tenant in it. I think we would probably be struggling with providing financing that would go to a home that has an existing tenant because we don't want to displace those tenants. However, if you were envisioning turning that opportunity into home ownership for those tenants, I wonder if we could think through how our model, and I'd love input from the other organizations on your understanding of the Middle Income Workforce Housing Fund. Could our financing still support your rehab as in an effort to then support home ownership for those tenants?
Well, I think you hit on something, because I've been approached numerous times about tenants from purchasing my homes. Even with Section 8, they have a home buyer program. And also with rent to own, people approaching me. Me knowing the value of property, I've been very reluctant to releasing. But I have a bigger picture here. So I don't want to displace anyone. That is not my intent here at all.
Yeah, no, I know that. I didn't mean to
No, I know what you mean. But yeah, so if I did, so for instance, these 3 or 4 homes I did renovate or rehab to make available for purchase for individuals, there would be a second transaction by me to go acquire. I mean, I hate to even say this right now, to go try to acquire additional properties for them. Because it just pains me to say it, because I know how tough it is right now. But yes, I mean, so all this it definitely gets more complex, as you can hear right now, with trying to renovate an existing home. But no, I'm interested if there was a way to kind of make it work. I don't know how that quite plays together right now, but yeah.
I think you'd have to subsidize, Jamie, honestly, in order, like at least on the rehab side. I mean, that's been my primary niche for the last really 6-7 years, has been residential rehabs and remodels. And I think on that end, in terms of where the market's at now, in order to do that, and especially the low to mid income neighborhoods, I think it couldn't even be a loan. It would have to be a subsidy, whether that's, city driven or whatnot. And I think you do hit a really interesting point that there's going to have to be some plan for, which I think is the reality of, there's got to be some kind of replacement model at some point. You look at around 75 North, there's a lot of housing stock there that hopefully can be remodeled, but there's a good chunk that are not salvageable just from a practicality standpoint. So at some point, somebody's going to have to address some kind of model that helps, whether, I think there's some natural ways to move that into home ownership, but I've tried to do some digging. I don't know that I've seen anybody really come up with a good kind of approach for the replacement model that isn't displacement or gentrification. That's going to be super tricky.
Jack, I think that, and Jamie can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that what you're talking about, that subsidy, or would essentially be an appraisal gap, the difference between the cost to purchase and rehab, and what the home is worth after, can be part of the program. So I think that's still very doable as long as it's not, overly cumbersome. We just would need to make sure that the home appraised at that minimum value. I mean, that floor, which hopefully it would, but that's the thing I think you might have to keep an eye out for a little bit more on the rehab side of things. But certainly, and I would say most because of the 50% of assessed value situation, some of these are going to be purchase and a gut rehab that has to happen with the home, but that doesn't mean it's can't also include what you're talking about, which is removing a unit and putting a new unit there, or a reconstruction, as some programs might call it. But the one thing that we do have to keep in mind is this: there isn't anything the city can provide as a subsidy in the home other than TIF. They could potentially connect TIF in some way, but the other types of subsidies can't go into the same home as a middle income workforce housing finance project.
Yeah, I think that's where, like, again, our funds could be that gap filler and just stay as a subsidy in the home. We want to maximize our funds to the highest degree possible and continue to revolve them. So we want to minimize the amount of subsidy per unit. Really, this is a volume issue with this. We as a collective have said we want to try to get 70 units online with the first tranche of funds that are coming through the 7 different organizations. And then, additional funds based off of that. So we may have to make some hard decisions between new construction and rehab to be able to support that. Some of the big themes I'm hearing, and then I just want to continue to open it up, and maybe what we'll do is, like, if there's a lot of conversation, let's keep going. If there's not, then we can look to call the meeting, and Angela, I'll defer to you on this, like at about 11:20. I'm hearing designs. So designs and plans for homes that will fit the variety of lots and lot parameters, land assembly through public sources that land exists. And then we all know that the private acquisition part is a challenge too. And then, so those are the two big kind of themes I'm hearing. And then just this kind of network of partners to continue to engage with. So that could be professionals, mostly architects in the beginning stages, but then also just the banking institutions and thinking about what partnerships would look like there. Laura, you sent me a private message, and I think the way you laid it out in there is a very simplified way to talk about how at least our fund could be a resource. Would you mind sharing that?
Sure, yeah. So I was just thinking, as we were talking about like the volume, like if you wanted to build 5 units, I think was thrown out there. If you needed, say, $1 million loan to build 5 units, and I'm really rounding a lot here, but it's just easier that way. I think that something that you might want to explore is, and that Spark would be willing to help with you, is to work with lenders. So you come to Spark and say, I need $1 million loan. Spark can work with lenders to potentially bring you a bank in for a traditional construction loan that'll be in first position of, say, $500,000. And then Spark will provide you a $500,000 subordinated construction loan. So for you as the builder, it's going to look like a $1 million loan. Spark has the flexibility with the interest rate that they charge to be able to provide you some relief there that the bank loan won't necessarily do. And then the bank is able to underwrite a little smaller loan too. So hopefully that keeps your borrowing capacity open for other activities that you're doing. So I think that's something that actually anybody who's running one of these funds is going to be working closely with banks and have those relationships. So I think that can be part of what your ask can be. Like, I need a total of this much. I realize you're not going to necessarily lend me that, but put your application into Spark and let them help try to put together the rest of that capital stack.
That's good advice.
Sonia?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
Sonia, what's your question or comment?
One of the things that, Danelle was commenting, with the issue with land. So some of the things that I've thought about is there a way that Spark graduates could have some sort of agreement, for example, with the land bank and say, this is the process. But if you're a Spark Development graduate, I'm not saying it making it easier, but obtainable. Like at the end of the day, at least for me, and I think this would, I'm sure go with everybody, we want to put to use everything we have learned. We're going to have stumbling blocks. We all know it. We'll get through it, right? But is there a way that we can partner? And no different. If we have 7 organizations that are going to do land development, why don't we consider going to distributors? Or I'm going to use this really simple example. I don't know, Lowe's. Like, this is what our goal is. Can we do a fixed pricing? Can there be a discount? Because we're going to be buying in volume to try and help the cost down. Again, we're not looking for freebies. We're looking to go and say, hey, how can we partner, right? Now, that's not just Lowe's. I mean, it could be any distributor. Again, if they align with the goals, if they want to give back to the community, if they want to make a difference, I believe that we could try and negotiate a specific, maybe a slightly lower. I mean, I'm a Lowe's pro. I have a construction company. I mean, you get 10% discount, right? I know that, but that's not what everybody else can get. But can we set that for these 7 organizations, and then we all can try and benefit from it and pass it down? And we, as new emerging developers, can really try and make this affordable middle housing really work. Now, I'm going to take it a step further and say, Miss Amazon, Mr. Amazon, you're building all these great things. What about helping us in the community and being able to give back of some sort? I mean, I just think we have to think bigger and we have to unite as a group in order to be able to achieve the goal. And I know that's what we're all trying to do, but that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think Sonia, go ahead. Yes, Laura.
Yeah, so I do think that everybody's gonna have to continue to think creatively, and this whole collaboration has been all along ways to address cost savings. I think that the Chamber's REACH program can maybe offer some suggestions on that. I will tell you that even nonprofits, even organizations as strong with a track record like Omaha Habitat for Humanity have a very difficult time getting discounts on construction materials. So I don't know that particular avenue, but I get what your point is how can we as a collective try to find ways to reduce costs. The other thing is that we aren't doing affordable housing necessarily here. We all want this to be affordable housing, but that's another thing that's going to work against you in trying to collectively try to fundraise or reduce costs here, unfortunately. So just a couple things to keep in mind. Everybody has a limited amount of time and energy. So where do you want to point that to in order to get these homes built and to get home buyers in them? And that's the other thing I just wanted to throw out there. We haven't talked a lot about the home buyer, but there's assistance here for the home buyer too. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about how you want to structure what you're building, what you're looking at. Are you willing to speculatively do some building? The home buyer does not have to meet an income restriction. So there are just some things that these are a little different than what you've seen in the overviews on the affordable housing programs.
Thank you, Laura. Okay. In the last few minutes here, I'm going to just summarize what I heard and then open it up one more time for any other generalized feedback or questions. Designs, land acquisition, reduce costs for construction, either through bulk purchase or negotiating better deals with the professions to provide their services at some either discount or some other kind of economy of scale. And those connections with the banking institutions to provide additional financing to support. Any other comments, any other questions, any other big pieces of feedback that would be helpful for us to think about?
Well, we're all working together. So I feel like, you know, as emerging developers, we should be able to all work together on the project to make it, you know, so we can get something on the board. That's kind of something I've been thinking about. It's like collaborating with other people. Just, you know, we all focus on one thing and get the project done. So we all have our name on it.
Thank you, Tyrone. I think that's one of the great benefits of this work, where all of you are meeting and working with each other, is all the partnerships that can spring up. And so to the end that you see that opportunity to work with each other and leverage each other's strengths and skills to be able to do that, we definitely are excited to see that and support that. Any other comments?
That's a super cool idea. Is Spark would they ever be able to include that as part of their academy?
So talk to me more, Kelly, like where we would actually formalize partnerships and like put the legal structure together. Is that what you're asking, or?
No. Like as part of it, do a practical application of what we're learning, only we all do it together.
Oh.
I mean, I think that would, whatever, that's just an idea that just sprung out. I know that that's way more, there's probably way more to it, like time. But I just think that's a really cool idea.
So if you guys want to do it, we can do it. I have like a piece of land on like 39 in Martha, which I think that's like South Omaha, right? Like that will be like South Omaha. And I've been wanting to build for the longest time, but I really don't do much about it. It's kind of on the back burner. Probably like 4 years ago, I got approved on a PUR to build a single family home. And kind of like the weird thing is like it has like a house already on the lot. So it's like a two single family home. But I already have an architect that will kind of help me with it. And basically I already have a plan to. We just have to kind of get the elevations and set the house in place. And you know, as far as the construction goes, like I'm kind of comfortable with it, but I guess I just haven't had the time to do it. And I guess the difficulty that I'm facing with it is honestly don't putting the time to it, but also like the making money out of it. Like I don't want to just like build something and then just leave equity in it. That would be my house. That can be either my house or my parents' house. Like we already have like somebody ready to like buy it. And it can be affordable because like quite honestly, it's just like a 2-story house with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. And like the basement is like an ADU. It's like kind of like a walkout basement. So like that can be rented out or, you know, used for like a family member. It's like a multi-generational house. And then behind it, I have a 3-car garage with a ADU on top of it. And then there's a tiny house behind it. So it's pretty affordable. It's just like the cost of it is just like quite a few units. So the cost is kind of higher. But I mean, it doesn't get any simpler, you know, like a 2-story house, 3 bedroom, 2 bathrooms, and then like finished basement with an ADU and then a 3-car garage with an ADU on top of it. So it's like a really good generating income model for like a medium class / hardworking person that then they can kind of own their own home and also create revenue by renting those other 2 units. You know, in this case, this house might even have like 3, but they are all considered a single family house. So it's just kind of like a little bit of a rabbit trail on that end. But that's like an application that if you guys want to look at it, we can just like meet there and kind of look at it and just trying to build it. Like I used to build houses, so like I just don't have the time to put it into it, but I'm comfortable. And if we can like find the financing piece to it, then let's just build it. Like that has been something I wanted to do and I haven't prioritized it. And there will be it's quite an interesting process because in order to build it, we're gonna have to find out like all the financing first to even see if it's any feasible. Kind of like work with the architect to design the house, which is pretty simple and straightforward. Then like something very interesting is that we're gonna have to go through planning to get it approved through a pre-UR process, which they did like, I don't know, I feel like it was like 3-4 years ago. They already approved it, but we're changing the plans because now I have a better idea, I guess. And then we are gonna have to get approved by them, and there's gonna be all sorts of things that are gonna come up on that. And then after that, once we get approved, then we gotta go build it. So, I mean, it's just like, if you guys kind of want to look into it, we can definitely make it like a collaborative thing. I'm just throwing it out there. And I think it's like South Omaha, I think it's like 39 and Martha, like that will be, you know, South. So I don't know, what I'm kind of very out of the loop is like, I showed up late to the conversation. So I don't know if you guys I just kind of hear you guys talking about financing and certain things. So I don't know if there's like something out there now that might fit this kind of project. And if there is, then let's just put it together and just as a group, let's do it, you know.
Ruben, would you put your contact information in the chat, and then folks who would like to follow up with you to explore that, maybe then you all could connect a bit more. Just one little piece of information, that 39th and Martha location does not fall within a qualified census tract. So then you'll need to think really creatively about financing sources, because many of the programs that provide subsidy, including the Middle Income Workforce Housing Fund, wouldn't be eligible in that particular census tract. That doesn't mean there aren't other resources that you could consider to support that. And the market could just be strong enough right there to support conventional financing. And that would be something we would be happy to provide some assistance.
So it does, like the super strong, the house next door, like it's just super weird, but they're selling it for like 500,000, like 550. But the biggest thing is how to make money out of it, because like in my perspective, it's like I'm not greedy or anything. It's just if I don't make revenue, then I can't feed my family, and then I can't do those kind of things. So it's like, how do I do a healthy business model? Meaning like I just build it, and as a builder I get paid, and as a developer I get paid. And somehow the equity justifies that. That's kind of when it gets kind of tricky, like the construction costs against the, you know, the valuation of the houses. So how to make money out of it, not in a greedy way, is just I'm a for market guy, you know, like that's all I know. Like I don't know anything else. And that's probably like the biggest stopping block. And it's like, if I need to leave equity in the deal, then that means I cannot do another deal. So that's when it gets kind of tricky.
Yeah. Thank you, Ruben. That you're right on there. So Ruben shared his contact information in the chat. Unless there aren't any other pieces of feedback or comments, I saw Kelly dropped some information about how we can maybe work more directly with the land bank to support that acquisition component. And I think we've taken some great notes and gotten some good feedback on ways that we can support you all in different ways. And I know our partners with our other nonprofits are happy to hear all this and understand some of the challenges and opportunities each of you are seeing, and maybe potential ways that you all can partner with them too in the future. So please, let's continue to stay in touch, attend our future sessions, reach out to any of us on the Spark team. And I would also encourage you to reach out to our partners with other nonprofits too, with thoughts and ideas and questions and partnership opportunities. Any closing comments, Angela? Anything else that you would add? You're good? Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone. We're going to end right now, and we will see you soon. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.